us. Well, as I mentioned at the start of the service, we have some special guests this morning. Remember, Living Hope family, that we partnered with Weymouth Community Church on a missions trip through an organization called Filter of Hope. And so they went, and they are back. They all made it, thankfully, because they went to Guatemala. And so I'm going to turn it over to Mike Bazemore. Yes, he is my brother. And that's why he's more handsome than me, because I gave it all to him. But I'm going to turn it over to him and the team. So, guys, thanks so much for being here and being willing to share it with us this morning.
All right. Are these both working? Check that out. Awesome. Matt is a giver. Thanks, Matt. So, thank you for having us back. Trying to think when, it was in July at some point before we left. So it was August 4th, right? 8th. August 8th through the 14th, we went to, I'm going to let you guys say it. Guatemala. Awesome. Okay. So that was just really fun. So for anyone that, maybe you forgot or you weren't here when we presented before, we went on a trip with, as Matt mentioned, Filter of Hope, and it's a ministry that brings clean water through a simple water filter device that we leave with them. But also, as part of a trip with Filter of Hope, the goal is clean water, but also sharing of the gospel. And, or, as we found out, encouraging someone that already knows Jesus or someone that is on a path towards him already. So to encourage with and pray for whoever we meet, but the gospel is part of that. I think that's something that really resonated with me is sometimes we can err on one side or the other, where we're only concerned with getting through our 4 points of the gospel presentation with somebody, or we're only concerned with helping a practical need. This ministry allows easy pathway to sharing the gospel through the help. So the ministry is also very aware of, if you've heard of the book, When Helping Hurts. So just trying to do this in such a way that, that we're not building any kind of dependence on U.S. resources or money. And so every family that we met had a part in that. So when they were originally, introduced that, hey, somebody from Filter of Hope is going to come and provide you a water filter. But you need to be a part of this. You need to provide the bucket that we will use. And for the folks that we were with, the bucket was a very real expense for them. And so they had a part to play in this as well. So what I've asked the team to do, and so the format will be, we're going to share, probably half of us, and then we're going to show you some pictures, basically a slideshow, but it's all digital now, right? So it's a video of pictures. And then we'll continue on with the sharing. And then at the end, we'll have time for questions and answers from you all. Anything that you're curious about that we didn't cover or cover well enough. So feel free to be thinking through those questions as we share. If a question comes to mind, just kind of make a note of that, and we'll do all the Q&A at the end at once. So I'm going to let Ethan go first. And so for you all, if you could just state your name. So I gave them all a series of questions to consider, and they only have to answer one of them. It was either to share a story that they remember or impacted them, or something maybe that they've applied to their lives, something that changed maybe their perception of how God works in countries that are very different from ours, especially financially. That can be kind of shocking for some of us that come from a very comfortable place, to go there and see how other people live and what they have. So those are all things they considered, and I don't know what they're going to share. So this is going to be exciting for me too. So here we go.
All right, so yeah, like Mr. Bismarck just said, my name is Ethan. It was definitely hard to pick a story or just a highlight of the trip because it was just an amazing trip all around. All the people we worked with were amazing. Everything was just a super cool experience. But I guess probably the most important highlight for me was just sharing the gospel for the first time, especially cross-culturally. I mean, I've shared the gospel with friends and family before, but it's not really the same thing, especially cross-culturally. So that was a completely new experience, slightly terrifying the first time. But it was just super cool to see how God worked through our stumblings and stuff, just to make the gospel clear to these people who really needed Jesus. So there was, I think I got to present the gospel for like a full day. So we usually did like 4 houses in one day. So I got a couple chances to do it, and it was just really cool. Every house we got, you could just feel the Spirit moving. It was super cool to see just the power of God working in the lives of us as well as lives of the people too. So yeah, that was probably, yeah. I'll be done talking now.
I'm Hudson, Uncle Matt's nephew. Would you like to say it? Yeah, I'm not going to say it. Okay. Thank you. So, I think one of the biggest things just going to a different culture for me was when we shared the gospel, I was almost expecting it to be like how that would be here. Like if you're sharing the gospel with a total stranger, even just talking about something that is really related to their lives, they just kind of, they're either, okay, hi Hannah. They're either like, okay, I'll listen, but like their hearts and minds are already closed to what you're going to say, and they're not really listening. They're more hearing. But in Guatemala, it was they wanted to hear, and they listened, and they asked questions, which was just crazy. That just like how they were so open to hearing about something that could change their way of life and like how they live, while just here people are just, they're not willing to do that. And that was just really cool to see how they were really open to that.
My name is Elijah, and going into this trip, I was like a little nervous and like not sure what to expect, and just throughout this trip, God strengthened our relationship, my relationship with Him, by me being able to trust Him more, and just seeing all the things like that fell into place with the funding and like the plane rides, the safety, all of that was like it furthered my relationship with Him by being able to trust Him more. And yeah, one example of this is on our first day of filter distribution, we were scheduled to go to a certain person's house, but that person wasn't home, so we ended up going to somebody else's house, which they were struggling with some things, and they needed to hear the gospel, and it was just cool how that worked out. And yeah.
All right, so I'm just going to share a little bit more, and then we'll show the picture slideshow. Thank you guys for sharing. So everybody be thinking, if you have any questions for Ethan, Hudson, or Elijah, we'll do that at the Q&A time. We definitely want to give them more opportunity to share some things. So thanks, guys. So kind of how it works out is local churches in the area where we partner, and Filter of Hope is partnering, they've kind of canvassed a neighborhood. They already know the need exists for a water filter and for the gospel. And they're also a local point of contact for discipleship and follow-up, and a church body they can plug into. So that's another really cool thing about this ministry, is it's not, out there, share the gospel and leave, and they have nowhere to go after that. So there's always a follow-up plan in place. So they've kind of met with those families. They know that we're coming. And so one thing that was really cool, because I was with Elijah's team there, and our translator, Hector, in that case, right? So he basically said, as we walked away from the home we were supposed to go to, and we didn't know where we were going yet, he was just kind of like, this is where it gets exciting, guys, because now we're in God's plan. And so God was going to lead us to who he wanted us to talk with. And so that was really cool. Like, it's just kind of gave me some chills, like, just to think of, like, okay, this is somebody else's plan and I'm along for the ride, and he's going to guide us to that home that needs it the most. And in fact, I think, as Elijah mentioned, there was a lot going on, I think, in that house, and it was a work day, so most of the men were off. It's common in the culture, at least within the villages we were working in. We heard many stories of the father is off drinking and not working necessarily. Some of them are off working and are in fact caring for their families very well as best they can. But in this case, I think it came out through conversation and prayer. That she mentioned, they said it in a real gentle way, I think, if you guys remember. It was kind of like she doesn't have the best husband. He's not good to her, basically. And so there was a lot of resistance. I remember her, as we were sharing the gospel, like her arms being folded, and then just through further prayer and talking, she softened and eventually prayed to receive Christ as her Savior there. She had one of her older daughters kind of came in partway through that conversation and just kind of stayed off in the back. And Hector, basically said, "Hey, what's your name?" And, got to know her a little bit. "You overheard what we were talking about?" "Yes." "Would you like to know more?" "Yes." And she eventually prayed as well. And so it was really cool because that was the house that we weren't supposed to go to. So it was just really neat. And that was, I think, one of the homes where one thing we would do is kind of canvas a little bit to gather information for Filter of Hope and just to know what's going on. Where do you get your water from? And they'll show us where they get their water from. Most of it came to the house through some piping systems. I think most of it's gravity fed, but the pipes are not tight in the ground. And so you can get agricultural runoff that mixes with that water, or you can get, in some cases, sewer lines are running also nearby, and those are also not tight or sealed up. So there's a lot of mixing of groundwater. So we would also ask the family, does the water make you sick? And this family for sure said, yes, it does. Like, they were aware that the water equaled sickness. And so they all had stuff going on. I think, I'll share it now. Like, that one, I think really set the tone for me for what we're doing there. Because as we left, not only did 2 people pray to receive Christ with us and have a local church contact to plug back into, but with, I'm not going to say she was crying. Her eyes were weepy for sure, as she thanked us for providing a water filter so that her children could be healthy and not sick. And so that was like, something I take for granted is clean water. I think we probably all do. But that was very real to me, that this meant a lot. Not just to her, but her children. And that makes a difference in their futures too. So now they have family members that know Jesus, and we pray that those children will come to know him at an early age, hear his voice. So if we could go ahead and show the photos, and then Hannah, when that's done, we'll start with you and work this way.
Though I'm living a good life, There's a reason I'm alive. For a blink of an eye.
We good? I apologize for being late, first off. Came right from work. But thank you all for the support and prayers. I know when they said you guys were setting up prayer hours, that's amazing just to think that through the whole time people were going to be praying for us. Through this trip, I felt God challenged me a lot. I think he took two of my biggest weaknesses, or what I thought were my biggest weaknesses, and he says, this is what you're doing the whole time you're there. So I'm terrible at praying out loud. And as one of the only girls in a group, a lot I was with the guys. And like Uncle Mike said, the guys are at work. So it was pretty much the women we were talking to. As another woman, I felt I could stand up. I could put my hand on her and pray for her. I'm praying out loud. I'm like, there's things they just said that don't even make sense. But the translator was able to go through. I'm like, we're good. You know, it's God's words coming through me. And Uncle Mike also kind of put me in charge the first day of being the spokesperson. So I was the first one to walk through the door and kind of ask the questions. And he said that. I'm like, what? He goes, you're so friendly. Me? What? I don't know. But, and I learned that my friendliness can have no language barriers. And bringing both those things back home is a challenge, and I've been trying to work on it, both things, but it was interesting to see how it was. These two things aren't as big of a weakness as I really thought they
were. I'm Russell. When we were preparing for the trip, there was one section that said, bring a paperback Bible because that may get water damage on it, because we were going during the rainy season. So I was thinking, hey, I get to buy a new Bible. But when I got home, I said, no, I can't buy a new Bible. So I had to pull this one
Hey,
out.
Russ, how many Bibles do you have?
I don't know.
All right, I'll just say, I asked him that after one of the meetings, and he goes, well, maybe 9 or 10, and then he starts listing them off, and I'm like, dude, you're at 17.
So Bibles are, the word is important to me. So, but I pulled this one off the shelf because it already had water damage on it, which was a good thing, because one of the days that we were presenting, two families were coming together for us to present, and it was raining pretty hard, and we had to go out to the shed so we'd have enough room, and the shed had a tin roof, and heavy rain on a tin roof, and my quiet voice was not working very well. So that was an experience that I had to really step up and follow through on. There's another situation where we were in a home, lovely garden there at this home, and the lady was already a believer, but she hadn't been attending church. And we were there to not only provide a water filter for her, but to encourage her and for her to return to church. Her niece was there with her, and her niece talked about her missing her aunt singing at church, and that kind of excited her about that. So she pulls out this device, taps some things in it. She pulls out a couple of songbooks. Her and her niece started singing, and it not only lifted our hearts and encouraged us, but it was an encouragement for them as well. I could kind of catch on with the tune and some of the words, and it was "Our God Reigns." Even through our situation that we're providing water filters and the gospel to individuals, God still reigns there in Guatemala as well.
Okay, my turn. Okay, so, I'm Tracy. Sorry. And my story that I'd like to share was on the first day, and just to give, you've heard little pieces of it, but just to give kind of a setup to when we would go into these homes, there'd be 4 of us, and there would be a spokesperson, the water filter person putting it together and sharing that, the gospel presentation, and then somebody doing something with an app. So the first day, like Hannah, I was the spokesperson, and I thought, okay, this is going to be interesting. Going into somebody's home, complete stranger, striking up conversation, getting to know them, not necessarily in my wheelhouse per se, but everybody said, just talk about kids, talk about family. And I'm like, okay, I have kids, I have family, I can do that. So we go into the home and we introduce ourselves and kind of share what we're there for. And I started asking questions, and there were no family, no kids. It was her and her husband. And so I had like a moment of panic of like, what am I going to talk to her about? Like, I have to like keep this going. But again, I feel it was like God just saying, you know what, I have a plan, I have the details worked out. And of course God provided, conversation, and it went maybe a little bumpy, but it went really well. And then there's just one other kind of funny thing that, again, our first probably 15 minutes in the house, they kept telling us, when you go to these people's houses, they're going to be at the door with a bucket, like ready to go. And so we got to the point where Ethan was going to do the bucket, and we have to drill a hole in it. And so we asked her, do you have a bucket? And she didn't have a bucket. And I remember we all were just like, I remember looking at Russ and looking at the kids, and like our translator were like, they never told us what to do if somebody doesn't have a bucket. Like, this is like day one. So again, I mean, of course it worked out and God had a plan, but it was like those reminders right away of like, God's going to use us even in our fumbling, even in our, like, my plan was not, going as I thought. But as we spoke with this woman and got to know her a little bit, it was just so clear, like as soon as we started to talk about the filter and kind of why we were there, like she had tears in her eyes. Like you could just tell her life was really hard. I don't even know exactly what all the things that she had, but it was very lonely, very rough life. And you can just see even the living conditions, like nothing looked easy at all. And then through talking to her and explaining the filter and then giving the filter to her and having this clear water, like she had tears, just the appreciation and the thankfulness of us being there. And I don't know how many times she said thank you, throughout the whole thing. And then it gets even better because then we were able to share the gospel with her, and you could just see God working in her heart, like more tears, just sharing with us little bits, that we could understand. But I know that God was moving in her heart, and like that we got to be a piece of that. And I know that she heard the gospel, she heard the truth, and she got to see just a glimpse of it just by us being there. And so it was just, obviously it was an amazing experience for us, but just to see that impact that it had. First, just the water. First, just us being in her home, like having somebody there caring for her to give her the water, and then just giving her the word of God. And so it just, as I look back and I think about this, I think of her home and how broken she was and lost. And I'm like, it's the same here, like in Ohio, in the United States. There's people all around if we just can take that time to talk, which, we often don't do because things are quick and it's like we're busy with going about the day. So I try to, remember that, taking the time to talk to somebody, you can hear what they're going through, and sometimes just that care, just that attention, and then being able to share the truth and the hope of Jesus is just an awesome experience. And thank you all so much, for your support and your prayers. I think all of us would say, without a doubt, that we felt the prayers throughout this whole, every detail of this trip we know was covered in prayer, and a lot from you folks. So we thank you so much for partnering with us in that way.
I'm Faith, and on our last day of filter distribution, we went into this house, and usually they said the husband was working, but there was the husband and his wife, and then their 2 daughters and their granddaughter, and it was mostly just the husband and wife listening. But they told us that 3 months ago their house had burned down and everything in it was gone. So the house and everything inside of it was given by friends and by neighbors. And they were just, I was just so amazed at how content, how grateful they were for everything that they had, even though it could be hard when their house just burned down. And God was telling me not to take things for granted, because you never know when something like that could happen. And they were so happy, and they were all smiles. Oh yeah, and when we got there, they had someone go and even buy us a snack, and that was just super cool.
Cool. Thank you all for sharing. Did anything else pop up that you wish you'd shared when you had the mic? No, not everybody at once. It's okay. All right. Do we have any numbers people out here? Like, what are the stats, right? Who wants that? Okay. Thank you. Thank you. I don't want to say it for nothing. All right. So we had a team of 8 that went, and because it was a team of 8, you need a minimum of 10 to organize a trip with Filter of Hope. It's just kind of how all the numbers work. So financially, especially. So we grouped up with a team that came from Missouri, and so you saw more than 8 people in some of those pictures. That was the group from Missouri. Excellent folk. I think it was a lot of fun, and they were great to work with. So as Weymouth Community Church, so the 8 of us, we were able to distribute 34 filters. We shared the gospel with 47 people. 11 prayed to receive Christ with us kind of right there while we were in their home. And we confirmed 18 people that were already Christians. And like I mentioned, it was just a good time to pray with them, to kind of hear their stories and see where they're at and encourage them. And I'm going to say more about that in a second here. I have a picture of what we did as an entire team for the week. So the 2 churches combined distributed 75 filters, shared with 136 people. That's a 5, I believe. 52 prayed to receive Christ. So we can go ahead and clap for that. That's pretty awesome. And then it looks like 55 confirmed like believers. And so the way that our translators were incredible. Our translator Hector that we mentioned, he came from Florida. He's actually I'm trying to remember where he's from originally. He's not U.S. native, but he pastors a church around Tampa. No, East Coast. Predominantly Spanish speaking. So he was there to kind of partner with us. There was another pastor that came from Costa Rica. There was a guy, who's the Filter of Hope staff that was from Panama? Serban. Everybody needs a Serban in their life. Such a great guy. Yeah, just pausing to think about Serban. So it was just really, really, really cool. So what they would do is ask really heartfelt questions. Like, they weren't prying and asking them to, recite the 10 Commandments, but just really trying to dig in and know, like, do you really know Jesus? Because it's kind of a mix of probably their Mayan religions and Catholicism. And so for somebody to say that they're a Christian, that would be pretty normal, because they would consider themselves Catholic. And kind of on that note, so in those parts of the country or the world, you can have Spanish people of Spanish descent or whatever the tribes were locally in that area. And so we were predominantly with Mayan descent people groups. So they had that clothing on. Most of them spoke Spanish and whatever that dialect was. So that was pretty cool. I was trying to think. So we got through the numbers. There was one other thing that just kind of, I don't know, it's been striking me recently, thinking through 9/11, thinking through kind of what we saw over there, thinking through the brokenness in our own country, and then thinking through those that we were able to pray with that are now brothers and sisters with you all. And just the reality that we have a future hope that is a new kingdom that Jesus will come and bring and reign. And he's taken that brokenness that exists here, and he's not just discarding it and making some new things. He's going to make that brokenness new. So some of y'all should talk. Q&A.
Sorry. Thank you for allowing us to partner with you and sharing your story. And I just wanted to encourage you. I know Elijah shared his story, and others had shared similar things about, man makes his plans, but the Lord determines his steps type of thing. And I needed that reminder, so I just wanted to encourage you that as you share your story, like, your impact didn't end when you left Guatemala and stuff. As you're sharing the story, it's impacting people beyond, because I needed to hear myself that I can get frustrated when I make plans for something and it doesn't go the way I wanted. And just that reminder today is just going to help me to think through that God's got a plan that I need to trust in. I'll do that more quickly now, just hearing your story. And so thank you for sharing that kind of stuff. And it was just really awesome to be able to hear. So I appreciate you taking the time to be here today. That's all.
Any other questions?
Okay. Oh, for the people online. He won't let me hold the mic. You see that? My question was just, especially to the young people, would you guys go again? I mean,
Yes.
It's kind of a dumb question, but, I love that. And because our churches would love to go with you guys next year, so that's why I wanted to give you a chance to say, yes, come with us if you get a chance.
So everybody get out their mind calendars or a piece of paper. We have tentative dates for July 29th through August 4th next year to Costa Rica. So not Guatemala, but I don't know how you say it.
Guatemala.
Okay, that's good. So that was July 29th through August 4th next year, Filter of Hope. Come with us.
Good. Any other?
Hi, this is more about just the culture. So did you all enjoy the food? And did people, just give you food as you went? Or did the local church provide it? I'm just really curious, yeah.
Yeah, so
The church would give us a snack at the end of the day, and I started calling it pre-dinner because it was like a full dinner in and of itself to also go back and eat dinner. And I don't know if I just have a small stomach or what, but I was like, some cultures it's rude if you don't finish their food. So I was trying to, we'd all share each other's, Ethan and Hudson, they were, go to, I can't finish this, please help me. Yeah, but it was good food.
The other thing is oftentimes when you went into the homes, the families would offer something. And sometimes, like when Faith and I were in the house, they went and bought like a big 3-liter. It was a 3-liter of Pepsi and some crackers. But also sometimes they would offer you tamales or whatever, like home prepared things. And and they would have like pear preserves and things that would be amazing. But they did kind of caution us to not eat food that was not prepared by the places that we were from. But it just goes to show, like, they were very welcoming and generous. Like, I know some of these folks got like pomegranates and fruits from their, from the area. But a different culture. But it was really neat.
I just want to mention a little bit about, like, so when we're in the homes, they greatly encouraged us, probably because we're Americans and we're all about action, right? It's like, we have a task to do. Let's drill the hole in that bucket, set up a filter, and move on to the next house. Let's get 10 filters distributed today. The goal is relationship. And so, especially in a Latin culture, it would have been very rude and probably shocking to show up, do the filter, and go. Go through our 4 laws and out the door. So they really encouraged us, like, you should probably spend 30 minutes to an hour talking. Just, take time. These are very relational people. I think we miss that in our culture because we're always on the go. And also on that note, like, Russ is so tired of hearing me talk about this, probably. So we have this pattern of, hi, how are you? What's your name? I'm Mike. I'm fine. How are you? I'm fine too. Next person. And that's just kind of our interaction culturally. Like, there usually isn't time to dig in and pause and go a little deeper, even a little deeper sometimes. But I noticed that we spent all that time at the beginning, set up the filter, show them how to do it. But it was really at the end when how can we pray for you, whether they were believers or not, where you start to hear what's really going on in some of their lives. Stage 4 cancer, stomach issues, brother in the hospital, paralyzed brother. Trying to think, like, every home we went into, they had real big things going on in their lives. And so it was just kind of a good reminder to me of, like, do we slow down enough to really know each other? And we don't have to have big stuff going on that's hard. We can just have time to really thank God that things are going well, or that he's provided for us, or that we're having time for this interaction. So we just need to slow down. And so, just I think that encouragement to be with someone long enough to know them, and remind each other that Jesus wants that too. He wants us to slow down, be known, and know him. So